Hello again. Because I believe that the statistical chances of people having high IQs, low levels of testosterone, experiencing early puberty, or possessing the ability to digest milk vary according to their ethnicity, it has been assumed by some people commenting on this channel that this means as a matter of course that I must exhibit racial prejudice, drawing conclusions about unknown individuals based solely upon their skin colour or ethnicity. In fact, I regard making such premature judgments as irrational and wrong-headed. Let me explain why it is perfectly possible to hold a belief in scientific racism while at the same time opposing racial prejudice in all its manifestations, because I don't think that a lot of the people that comment here adversely to my views are altogether aware of what it is that I am saying and advocating. I might observe that very often they just limit themselves to being abusive rather than debating in any rational and constructive way. But still, all talk about differences between black people and white, or Chinese people and white Europeans, comes down to a matter of statistics, probability. Any statement which suggests that every black person is violent and aggressive while all white people are peaceful and kind is bound to be false. We're not dealing in absolutes. We have all met gentle and intelligent black people, just as we have all come across white people who are unpleasant and thuggish. The differences are not a matter of absolutes, but of tendencies and percentages. The easiest way to illustrate this is by means of a thought experiment. Let us suppose, just for the sake of argument, that a small proportion of both black people and white are aggressive and violent, which, by the way, is almost certainly true. Now let's imagine that out of perhaps 100 white people, 3 are violent types who commit crimes against the person. Now let us just suppose that for some reason, perhaps genetic reasons connected with high testosterone levels or early puberty, that out of 100 young black men, 5 or 6 will be similarly aggressive and antisocial. This will mean that if you compare an exclusively white area with one which is exclusively black, then the black area will have a rate of violent crime which is twice as high as the white area. Perhaps we are comparing a London district like Tottenham with an area like Richmond. As it happens, this is the kind of thing we actually do observe when we look at the crime figures. Does this mean that if I meet a random black man, I should assume that he is likely to be violent and aggressive towards me? That would be nuts, because the proportion of such people among the whole black population is still only 1 in 20. I hope everyone can see that. In other words, meeting a young black man drawn at random, given the circumstances and the proportions that I've sketched out, then the odds would be 20 to 1 against his being a violent criminal. So although the area where the black community lives has got a crime rate twice that of the white area, it still means there's an overwhelming chance that the black person drawn at random from the community would not be violent. Exhibiting racial prejudice towards a black man whom I have never seen would make no sense at all in those circumstances. This is because these possible differences only show up when we're considering populations rather than individuals. They are not absolutes. If anybody said to me that every black man is less intelligent and more prone to violence than every white man, I'd just laugh, because I know it's absolute nonsense. In just the same way, it has been suggested that the average IQ of people of African heritage is slightly lower than that of white Europeans. This would mean that there would be slightly fewer black people with very high IQs and slightly more with very low ones. This wouldn't make much difference in the people who most of us meet in our day-to-day lives, who are likely to be of average intelligence anyway. I certainly couldn't assume that an unknown black person I was meeting for the first time would be less intelligent than I am. If it is true that IQs vary in this way, then the effect would only be visible in entire populations. You might, for instance, find that fewer black people gained A levels at the highest marks, or that special schools tended to have rather more black children than they did white. About any random individual, I could say nothing sensible. I hope that I've explained this clearly. The idea that we can make any kind of generalisation about black people or any other ethnic group is not really a rational one, and to make assumptions about any person about whom nothing is known, basing these opinions purely upon skin colour or ethnic origin, would not be a rational and sound way to go about things. In short, racism is one thing, racial prejudice something else entirely.